Hello there, and welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. This is season 15, episode 43, and I'm live with Sergio Demian Lerner. For English people, you can just refer to him as Sergio. He's the architect of the Rootstock sidechain, which was the first sidechain to get launched on Bitcoin. He was also featured, as you can see behind me, in season 15, episode 7, which we recorded during La BitConf in Argentina. And I think you should listen to that one also after you're done with this one. And more recently, he became interested in BitVM, and he's trying very hard to make rootstock trust minimized, and he's working with the technology that was first brought into Bitcoin by Robin Linus. And right now, he's going to talk about BitVM X, which is like an improvement. X stands for 10, right? So it should be 10 times better than BitVM.
It is, in terms of cost, it is. So thanks, Vlad, for inviting me the second time.
No, it's really good to have you. I'm super excited because I know that you've been working hard. I saw you last year at La BitConf and you were excited about BitVM. And you were saying, oh, it's
Yeah.
the best thing to happen in Bitcoin in a long time. And if you can do this and change that, and you wished we could have some soft forks just to make it more efficient. But I'll let you do the talking from here because I guess you added some optimizations.
Oh yeah. So let's start from the beginning. So to talk about BitVMX, we should review a little bit of the history of the last year from the initial BitVM white paper to what we are studying today. So BitVM, as proposed by the original white paper by Robin, was a method for two parties, essentially, to agree on a program that could be Turing complete, like could be much more complex than a standard Bitcoin script, to agree to execute that program and use that program to decide whether certain funds should be transferred to a destination address, right? And the way to specify that was by creating a logical circuit, which was huge because you had to really translate your program or your logic or your algorithm into hardware circuit made of NAND gates or standard logic gates. And that conversion turns out to produce huge circuits. So the BitVM idea was refreshing, was interesting, and spread a lot of excitement, as you mentioned. But essentially, the main idea was not practical. It was really impractical because the amount of data you had to exchange between these two parties would make it just impractical. It would be the hundreds of terabytes of circuit data, right? So soon after the paper was published, there were implementations, like one from Super Testnet, but essentially Robin started working on a CPU, right? So instead of trying to convert a program into a circuit, he said, okay, let's build kind of a circuit for a CPU, and then we just run the program on the CPU. One thing I didn't mention, which is very important, is that it's not that the whole program is run on chain, and this is what makes this possible on Bitcoin, is that the thing that is actually run on chain is a single step of the program, or in case of a logic circuit, is a single gate of a logic circuit. So this is a paradigm, a computing paradigm that was used on Ethereum before and was actually introduced by a project called TrueBit in Ethereum in 2017 to, cheaply evaluate complex programs on the Ethereum blockchain. So he brought this paradigm to Bitcoin. In Bitcoin, it was also known kind of a fraud-proof paradigm, where you say something and then some other can prove that you are wrong. But it's essentially, I would call it the disputable computing paradigm. So you assert something on chain, and then if nobody challenges you, then it's true. But if someone challenges you, then you enter a dispute resolution protocol where you decide if it's actually true or false in a completely objective manner, right? So instead of going back to the history, Robin, instead of using this logic circuit, he said, okay, I can use Bitcoin script to code one step of, to use it to evaluate one step of a CPU. So basically, what I want to do is create a program then with the program create what is called a trace, which is a series of instructions that represent the execution of the program. And then using a dispute resolution protocol, be able to identify between the verifier and the prover which of these instructions is incorrect. So basically, I said, okay, this is the input that makes this program pass. And then if you disagree, we enter a protocol in case of Robin first proposal using a binary search method where we identify which instruction of this trace of instructions is incorrect, and we are able to prove on chain that a single instruction is either correct or incorrect, right? So that was his what is now called BitVM 1 implementation. And so one of the two things I would say that was mentioned in the paper was first the idea that you can evaluate arbitrary circuits, but the other interesting thing is that you can use Lamport signatures to move information between different transactions. So one of the properties of Bitcoin script is that it's stateless, right? Yes, just every UTXO you spend, it doesn't carry any information from the block or the transaction or the outputs. It doesn't have a reflection. It doesn't know about previous transaction. It knows nothing, right? It's completely isolated. So one of the ideas in the paper was the use of Lamport signatures to carry information between transactions. So Lamport signatures are a method to use, very old method to use hashes to actually sign data. And what is interesting is that you can verify very easily Lamport signatures on Bitcoin script. So aim with this new tool to move information, then we can build a dispute resolution protocol, which basically carries some information from transaction to transaction. So going back to history, he started coding this BitVM1 CPU, and as soon as he started coding, some friends of mine and me that we are working with in a company called Fairgate, we identified that it was very inefficient the way that he was trying to build the CPU. So we thought, well, he's going to stop at certain point probably, and he's going to switch to some other design. This design, it's very interesting to have a first working implementation, but the way he's doing it, it's a little bit complicated. It's very expensive, and you can do it much easier. So we started working on potential different implementation. We also suggested some changes and gave some code snippets to the BitVM project, but actually that was what really happened. Like BitVM1 was a project that was written for like 3 or 4 months, and then it was abandoned. And it was abandoned for a new project called BitVM2 that instead of using many stages to do dispute resolution, or many rounds, or these are called rounds, it just uses one round. And the idea of BitVM2 is instead of having a program and execute the program and convert it to a trace, and then try to look up the instruction that is invalid in the trace, the idea of most of the program we are running are actually snark verifiers. That's the very, very clever, idea, is that most of the most common use cases for BitVM is actually building bridges, either to sidechains or to rollups. So those bridges need to bring a lot of information from the sidechain to the Bitcoin script as program input. And that is very expensive because sign each bit of this chain for a withdrawal costs a lot of fees in bytes, right? So he said, okay, we are going to verify snarks. Let's, instead of trying to do general computing, let's focus on solving the snark verifier on Bitcoin, and then we will transform any program. We will build a proof, and then we will verify it with the snark verifier. The problem with this approach is that it's fairly expensive. Like to start a dispute, you basically need to post on chain all intermediate state of the whole computation that you are going to perform. And this can take like a couple of blocks full of mid states, right? And that cost, I don't know, depends on the day, but could cost like $50,000 in fees. So if you think about that, you're going to build a technology to execute arbitrary programs in Bitcoin, but it costs $50,000 in fees just to enter a dispute. And so that's, for me, it's prohibitive. Like, it's only going to be used for liquidity providers of the, of hundreds of $1 million. And so that is not what we want, what we wanted for Rootstock. Like, one of the qualities of Rootstock, I would say, is that pegging in and pegging out is very cheap. It costs like tens of dollars. So that system would not work for Rootstock or for most of potential sidechains. Like, if you really want to use the sidechain for, a decentralized financial inclusion tool, if only a few participants are able to peg in and peg out, basically. So we wanted to continue the development of this CPU, general purpose CPU, that it would be very cheap. And so as soon as the BitVM 1 project was halted, we say, okay, we need to continue it, but we need to start from scratch, and we need to use better design. So we engage with Rootstock Labs to develop together, from Fairgate Labs to Rootstock Labs, a better system, open source, that anyone could use and put it in production. So that's how the white paper of BitVMX came to be. And so we have so many improvements now that, I'm super excited of what is coming. We have coded like a high percent of the CPU. It's a RISC-V CPU, can actually compile things with GCC or any standard compiler and run them on Sidechain. And what is interesting is that the total cost of the dispute using BitVMX, it's about currently it's about $400 for the two parties, and we have a couple of methods to reduce that to maybe a third of that. So that makes it expands the number of use cases that you can do, right? Because it's not only like very high liquidity providers or very rich liquidity providers. Like, you could use it. One of the use cases that I was toying with last weeks was creating payment channels out of BitVMX. Like, you can very easily code any protocol for creating state or payment channels, and code it and use BitVMX to actually execute them on chain. So this could bring a new type of Lightning network where, we don't care about all the complexities of the cancellation transactions and the revoke. All the complexities of Lightning network could be completely removed by using BitVMX as a method to achieve payment channels, for instance, with a cost that is maybe below $100 of security bonds. So it's very interesting, and I really want people to bring more use cases. Like, I have a couple of very interesting use cases in my mind, but I really think that once this is in the hands of the community, there will be many more use cases to use it. Like, I don't know, decentralized exchanges or sort of DeFi things. I see it as a very nascent technology. But I must say, sorry to, I must say that there is some drawbacks. Like, it's not perfect. There's a need to be a committee. Like, it's not fully trustless. It won't be trustless unless we have covenants on Bitcoin. So there is a sort of committee. But the good news is that the security assumption is that you only need one person of this committee to be honest for the whole solution to be secure. And you can also make the committee open. Like, you can open it for staking or for any participant, because you just need one to be honest. And if you are part of the committee, you don't care about having more committee members or expanding it, because you know that as long as you are there, the thing is secure. So it really makes all the bridges much more decentralized, in a sense, like, now anyone can participate in the of the bridge. Let's say you are in Rootstock and want to deploy a super new DeFi protocol on Rootstock, and you would like to be participant on the security of the bridge. So you can enter that and permissionless. And for me, that's game changing.
I was muted here. So when you are talking, the audio is great, but at the same time the video is frozen. And when the video
Oh,
unfreezes, your audio becomes awful. So you can switch off your video because the audio is more
okay,
important. I put the thumbnail which has your picture to replace the video. So we should be good.
okay,
I think we're
okay. So I
gonna get a
turn
much better performance if you just leave the audio on. Because
audio off. Yeah, audio on and video off. Okay, yeah,
yeah,
okay,
it's gonna take less of your bandwidth, and I think the audio is gonna actually get better. And
yeah,
secondly, check out Twitter and make sure you retweet this so people know that we're doing this live. I sent you a
okay.
DM with all the details with the video so people can actually ask questions if they have anything interesting to say. And while you do that, I'm gonna tell everyone about today's sponsor, Sideshift.ai. I'm not sure if Sideshift integrates Rootstock, but they should integrate RBTC. Basically, what you can use Sideshift for is the equivalent of this DEX, except that it's centralized. It's a type of exchange where all you do is just send the funds and you swap for something else. For example, if someone pays you in, let's say, stable coins, and of course you don't want to hold on to stable coins, you want to get some scarce and sound money, you can do that on Sideshift without any sort of sign up. It just works. It's pretty cool. Or if you want to trade without signing up to some exchange like Binance or whatever, you can also use Sideshift for this. The fees are pretty low, and you can check it out at sideshift.ai. And Sergio, I hope in the meantime you could retweet our interview and more people are going to be tuning in. And now I'm going to ask you about what type of covenant is required for sidechains and Bitcoin to become truly trust minimized.
Mm, okay, so the I think it's like any covenant will do. Like Opcat, of course, can do it because you can combine Opcat with BitVMX and have it completely trustless. The thing is that there is an impossibility result to have a fully trustless breach, and this is a theoretical result from Alexei Samyadin. So even if we do have perfect covenants, like there is an assumption of a honest majority, which we can bring down to Bitcoin miners or we can create a certain group that we kind of trust it will be decentralized enough, but it's impossible to get a perfect decentralized bridge. That's a theoretical result, but we can get very very close to one, like having long dispute periods where there's no possibility of censorship. There's many things we can do to improve it, but it's never going to be perfect. That's for sure.
Okay, so you're saying that Opcat is enough for making this trust minimized to the greatest extent that is practically possible.
Yes. But so my experience with Bitcoin soft fork is that you cannot plan anything based on that certain opcode is going to be implemented in Bitcoin. That is just ruining your life and wasting your time. So even if you support a certain opcode, you think it's great for Bitcoin, and you cannot plan it. Like I saw like Starkware saying, okay, we are going to enter the Bitcoin L2 business when there is an opcode on Bitcoin. 6 months later, we'll be there. Well, this you don't plan like that. There's no like the process for upgrading Bitcoin is so complex and so political, and so nobody knows what's really going to happen. So and so there's so many uncertainties. Even if technically we can all agree, then we can have a new proposal that basically invalidates the previous one because some group think this is better, and then we are stalled and nothing happens. And so I think that the best we can do, and I've used this with Rootstock since the beginning, is just make things people like and try to make it as best as possible with the current technology. And if somehow magically new opcos are not forking to Bitcoin, then we are going to, use the best possible, obviously, technology to decentralize. Like in the Rootstock white paper, there is a clear sentence which say we are going to use the best possible decentralization technology when it comes. And in meanwhile, just let the people have decentralized finance and financial inclusion, which is something so much needed, essentially in Latin America.
Yeah, I appreciate that about you, that you don't like to engage in politics. I think also when you deployed
Well,
Rootstock,
I
you did not go
mhm.
to the developers and ask them to go through the bid process and propose this and activate it in some way. You went to the miners and you spoke with them and you said, you could collect some fees from the transactions on the sidechain and you can secure it. And I think half of them right now are securing Rootstock.
Yeah, I think it was easier. We don't went to the miners. We just like publish our thing and ask their questions. It was like it took a long time. It was organic. Like let's say they saw the opportunity and they saw that this was good for Bitcoin, and that's a more important thing. Like you can give you could give money to miners in terms of transaction fees or whatever thing you want to do, but at the end of the game they're going to support you if there is an alignment of values between Bitcoin and your sidechain. And that I think is, I've written about this, is the main difference between being a Bitcoin sidechain and being just a blockchain connected to Bitcoin. Like being a sidechain means alignment of interest, means you don't have a money token that competes with Bitcoin. And more important to any technical definition of a sidechain, that's the key point. That's what people understand when you tell someone, hey, this is a Bitcoin sidechain. They will ask, okay, but does it have a token that you have to pump, or you have to stake, or you have to do something to make it work? And if it doesn't, then it's probably a Bitcoin sidechain.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting distinction to be made because sometimes sidechain and layer 2 they're used interchangeably as synonyms, but they're really not. And what is a layer
No.
2? Because some people claim
Mm-hmm.
that WBTC on Ethereum is a layer 2 because you lock BTC and then you can transact it on another network that offers different other advantages, and some people say it's more scalable, but it's really not. It's just faster to transact and
Mm-hmm.
can go into some DeFi applications. And others say that stuff like Citrea is a layer 2, but others disagree with it. I don't know, it seems to be very
Yeah,
unclear.
it's it's unclear, and also, for instance, now that we have Bob, which is basically an Ethereum rollup, and it claims to be a Bitcoin layer 2, which is, it's kind of difficult really to us to really say it is, because it looks so much different, like what we think about Bitcoin layer 2, while for some definition it might be, I don't know. I think that the very strict definition of layer 2, which is that it should have uh, uncensorable exit mechanism, will be never be achieved on Bitcoin. So essentially, there's no layer 2 on that definition. We must we must use a definition which is a little bit softer, and which is basically any system that you know integrates with Bitcoin and offers to go in and out in the most decentralized possible way. Like that would be a layer 2. So, but I'm not very interested in layer 2 definition, because it's, as you say, it's very blurry. I'm very interested in the sidechain definition. Well, a sidechain is actually a blockchain. So Lightning Network, it's a layer 2, but it's not a sidechain, right?
There's always this conversation and this comparison that people make between Rootstock and Liquid. Liquid was launched later, even though Blockstream were the first ones to publish the sidechain white paper. They
Mm-hmm.
gave up on their idea of a trust minimized sidechain and they went for a federation. And I think from this point of view, at least aspirationally, Rootstock is superior because you never gave up. You didn't just say a federation is
Hmm.
good enough.
Yeah,
There's Peter
totally.
Todd who's going to claim, okay, but Rootstock today is the same as Liquid because you use HSMs. But at least, even if that's true, and you're going to disagree with it, of course, but even if it's true entirely, at least you're aspiring to use technology in Bitcoin to make it really trust minimized, while Liquid is
Yeah,
saying, yeah, this is the final product.
yeah, yeah, totally. So one of the objectives of the goals of Rootstock is to have the best possible decentralized bridge. I think the white paper, I'm not sure, I think the white paper mentions the possibility to use Drivechain because I wrote the first Drivechain BIP. So I think it's mentioned there. So the actual plan was, okay, we are going to have a temporary federation, and then we are going to switch to something better when that happens. And we made incentives for, for pegnatories, which are the members of the Rootstock Federation are called pegnatories, not to have any financial benefit from being a pegnatory. That was key because we didn't want, to have entrenched participants that would block moving to other types of pegs. We just wanted to be there because there's no other way. But if you start making a business out of being a pegnatory, then the time when the time comes to switch to something better, you will not be able to have your full community, and you will have a political strike, to switch or not to switch. So it makes that they don't earn anything from being a pegnatory. They just do it because they believe in the sidechain, right? And we also make it very cheap. Like our HSN devices are based on Ledger uh, hardware wallets, which makes them very cheap. So there's no actual high investment to be a pegnatory. It's just having an isolated computer in a kind of a security environment, running a hardware wallet full time, and the private keys never go out of the hardware wallet. So even if your computer is hacked, there is no way that hacker can use that to steal the funds. But what is actually what you mentioned about Liquid, which I think is actually super amazing, is that in the original Liquid proposal for an SPV sidechain, they talked about having a proof on chain and a counter proof. Like I could bring a sidechain uh, part, a set of blocks from the sidechain having a certain cumulative hash rate, cumulative work, and then there was an opportunity for a counter proof where some other user could come with a chain that contradicts my chain with a higher cumulative work and say, no, you're trying to cheat. This is the honest chain, which is a mechanism that BitVMX supports, and not and the other proposals like BitVM1 or BitVM or BitSnarkNado or BitSnark, none of them support having counterproofs. So in BitVMX, there is an opportunity for the prover to add input, and also there is an opportunity for the verifier to add a second input to the same program. So think about that. One input could be, certain snark proof that verifies certain blockchain, the sidechain blockchain. I'm talking about a withdrawal, right, from the blockchain. And then the verifier can bring another proof for a dishonest chain. So basically that blocks any attempt to secretly self mine blocks in order to try to disrupt the system and to steal the funds. Because if you cannot create a chain that is longer than the honest chain, you basically lose the dispute because there is this opportunity of a counter proof. So I think we are getting super close to the original Blockstream SPV. And the benefit of doing this in BitVMX and not it was designed by Blockstream is that in the Blockstream proposal, the only format of the sidechain would be very similar to Bitcoin. Like there was blocks and there was some headers, and those headers are similar to Bitcoin, and there was an UTXO model, and everything was similar because you need you had to implement some opcodes to understand the sidechain blocks. But with BitVMX, you don't care about that because you just write a program for any blockchain. So if you want to have a blockchain that looks like an Ethereum blockchain, as Rootstock does, then it's okay. But you still can implement the same logic of having a proof of cumulative work and a counter proof of cumulative work in the same verified by the same program.
Yeah, I think fundamentally the difference between you and the Blockstream people is that you can acknowledge that there's something great that was developed in Ethereum, and you're going to say, yeah, we want to have this on Bitcoin also. But Blockstream is trying to entirely replace the model, everything that has been built into Ethereum, with their own programming language that they're trying to build, with their own token protocol, and everything else that's proprietary. And I think the end goal of Blockstream as a company is to try to tokenize Wall Street assets. I think that's what they're into right now and the direction in which they're heading, because they're very obsessed with compliance and they want to do everything to not upset anyone. But speaking of stuff that
I
has been imported from Ethereum, one of the sponsors of this show is Starkware, and they have this implementation which is called StarkNet on Ethereum. They do ZK rollups, which are designed in a way that requires no trusted setup. And a lot of people in Bitcoin agree that this is great and this is something that should be brought into Bitcoin. And their message to the listeners of the show is activate Upcat because that's the way in which they can bring this into Bitcoin. And I was wondering what you think about Starks.
Well, I think it's a phenomenal innovation, like quantum resistance, proof of computation integrity. Uh, it's marvelous. It's like magic. Like I think that the amount of innovation that happened in like last 10 years regarding Starks is incredible. The original Gregory Maxwell post in 2012 about coin witness has materialized in Ethereum like the almost entirely like this idea. So I think doing a good job. I don't know what business. I think that in terms of academic accomplishment, they are doing a great job, and I really want to see that technology integrated into Bitcoin somehow. Like the thing is that they're waiting for OpCat to be soft fork, but they don't need to. Like they could use BitVMX, and it's I think that we are talking about when we discuss about Blockstream plan to have this new language implemented on Bitcoin. I think that the thing is that either you are a perfectionist and you want to have the perfect solution and you will do nothing until you get the perfect solution, which is it's kind of a strategy, maybe very very long term, or you want to solve people's problems now, even if the solutions can be improved or are not perfect, but you see that there is a huge demand for 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 this, and you think what you are building is secure enough for the people. Of course, are not going to do something that will leave people unprotected. But again, if we wait until perfection, we will be, Bitcoin is going to be destroyed much sooner. So we need somehow to make this work for the people, not only for the elite. Because if Bitcoin is for the elite, then it's going to be copped. It's going to be taken over by banks and by ETFs. So for me, Bitcoin was always a technology for the people. And if it doesn't work for the people, I'm not saying that it should work with certain technology or with another, or block should be bigger or lower. I'm not talking about politics. I'm just saying that if Bitcoin does not work for the people, then there's no. It's not good for me. So I really want to help with BitVMX and with Rootstock to help this Bitcoin reach the people. And I think that small grain of is my contribution to the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yes, I can relate to a lot of that. It did become confusing since the ETFs got approved. It seems like the culture used to be about buying the dip and always holding and stuff like this. Now everyone's looking at what the ETFs are doing and doing analysis and thinking, okay, they just bought this volume and they're going to do this, and why is the price not going up after this? why are we even here? That's why I enjoy doing interviews with people like you who are building stuff, as opposed to thinking too much about the actors and the reasons, the actors that Bitcoin was created to fight against. Because right now we're
Mhm.
friends with the bankers and we wait for the bankers to do something, and we look at the price, and most of the times we're not happy, of course. They're not idiots. They have been ruling the world for a long time and they know exactly how to do this. They also
Totally.
suppressed the price of gold with ETFs, and they can understand how the price dynamics work. They know which exchanges are
Mhm.
influencing the price mostly, because what we see as the price is just an aggregation of the action on certain exchanges. And of course, there are some exchanges in the US that are more influential. If something is happening on their balance sheets, then it's going to affect the aggregation of the price to a greater extent. And they have learned how to leverage that, how to manipulate that in a way that they can do whatever they want with minimal impact on the price, and then they can crash it with some random FUD. It's funny and interesting. I don't know how we got here, but the message that I'm getting from this situation is that we should keep on improving Bitcoin because they caught up. They know what's going on. They know how to use it. We should introduce something that at least buys us five
Totally.
more years in time so that we can build something even better. At least
Mhm.
that's my understanding right now.
So Bitcoiners, the, we have a card, an ace under our sleeve is unpredictable innovation. Like, what can we do with Bitcoin that they don't foresee? Like, we try, for instance, we try to have private transactions, and we could say at this point that most of them have failed because the states have, the governments have blocked that possibility for individual privacy because of their own agenda. So we have to do something better in terms of everything. We have to be one step ahead. Like, how do we create private systems that cannot be shut down, right? Or how do we scale Bitcoin so it cannot be controlled? So it's more about being one step ahead. And if we cut our hands, if we do not change Bitcoin in any way, then we are very predictable, and then we are in danger.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we are in danger, but the project at large is in danger. And
Well, I dedicated the last 10 years of my life to it. So I would say that part of my life it's spoiled if we fail.
But what is failure? I think we should define what failure is, because to some people, failure means the price going to zero. That's where most people lose interest in what this is about.
Mhm.
To others, failure means complacency, not improving, not being disruptive in any way, and just being co-opted. I think to a great extent we have started to fail in the moment when we accepted that Visa and MasterCard are gonna have cards that allow you to spend your Bitcoin, and we're becoming embedded into the mainstream financial system that was supposed to get challenged by Bitcoin. We're not challenging anyone anymore, even with the Lightning Network, which was supposed to be disruptive and better than Visa and blah blah, all of these taglines. Now we're saying, yeah, so Lightning is not so great, but we can have this Chaumian eCash with protocols like Cashew. And basically, you're going to be able to receive money from anyone around the world and spend it, but it's going to be on a custodian's balance sheet. So, we're going to reinvent banking with Bitcoiners for the sake of scaling Bitcoin and making transactions cheap. And I think that's a way of giving up, if you ask me.
Well, I think that that solution should compete on pair with all the others. Like, that's the thing. We should not pick the winners. We should just have to let the market work, which is let there be many sidechains, let there be many layers too, and the market will do the thing, right? People will choose the one that are easier to use, the one that protects them better, and the one that are more, independent of any third party. Because naturally, you want to have control of your own money, right?
I very much agree with you, and I wish we understood competition much better, which is ironic. You would think that Bitcoiners, since they love free markets and all of this stuff, they would naturally gravitate towards competition. But it seems like we agreed at one point that Lightning is gonna be the scaling solution and nothing else is worthy of consideration. And we got to a point where I think last year was the peak of becoming disillusioned with what Lightning can do when people were having forced closed channels because of that high fee situation. And they
Mhm.
realized that the environment for which Lightning was created does not favor the Lightning Network. And the only way to make Lightning work is to centralize it, to have large custodians, not custodians, large channels. And basically, you're going to have these LSPs that provide you a service. You open channels with them and they provide the liquidity, you pay higher fees to them. And that's the design in
I,
which they said it can work.
mhm.
And to me, it's
Well,
disappointing. I remember opening channels with people and having fun. We had Telegram groups where we were opening channels in circles. It was called Rings of Fire.
mhm.
And the idea behind it was to have a route to almost everyone in the network. And we did that, except that the hardware was not powerful enough for most of us, and we were all using Tor, which was slowing down transactions. We were not routing. There are lots of flaws in regards to routing. And the only way to actually be a good router is to have a server that runs on ClearNet with broadband speed. If you're going to run your Raspberry Pi on
Mhm.
Tor, you're disadvantaged compared to the rest of the network,
Uh-huh.
and you're gonna get someone on the other side of the world blaming you for slowing down payments. So you can't have
So
decentralization in speed. I think that's the lesson to be
well,
learned.
the problem of inbound liquidity of Lightning is very core to its design. But I'm also excited that people will come up with improvements to Lightning too. So I'm not. I think it can grow also, but yet there should be like more competition on different front. Like the Lightning fees are essentially tied to Bitcoin fees, like in a way. Like if Bitcoin fees go up, then somehow they influence Lightning fees because of this the closing and opening of channels. So there must be an alternate solution based on sidechains that are fully or much more independent on Bitcoin Bitcoin congestion and Bitcoin fees. And one of the problems of the rollups that I've been following is that they keep posting this information on Bitcoin, which is basically the transaction is in a compressed way. So they keep using Bitcoin as a data availability layer. So they are making their transactions also, you know, um, uh, the cost of transacting proportional to Bitcoin, which is basically something that we have proven that it doesn't work. We need much lower transaction fees in some other system, right? So I really want to see competition between different Bitcoin layers too. Like even if it's FedMints or Lightning or Rootstock or whatever, we just need to create that ecosystem where we can swap from Rootstock to Lightning and from Lightning to Cash to Common Cash. We don't have that ecosystem. And if you look at Ethereum, with all the bad things that they did, they do have an ecosystem that is fully connected. Like there's liquidity fragmentation, but there's also very easy ways where you can move your tokens from one chain to the other. And so you can have a wallet that has a combination of different networks. And there is one wallet in Bitcoin that has Rootstock and Liquid integrated, and I think it's also integrating um, Lightning. I don't remember the name, but there is one. But we need much more like this, right?
Yeah, I think one of the roadblocks when people want to use Rootstock is that they discovered that the most popular wallet for this is MetaMask, which is an Ethereum wallet that's been adapted to run on the servers of Rootstock. And by servers, I mean nodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are a couple of them that are Bitcoin only, but people just don't know about them. And I think people would be more open to experimenting with this if they knew more about the tools to do.
Yeah. So the Rootstock Labs page has a list of all the wallets that are compatible, and there are a lot of them. Like I don't have I have to look it up, but there are probably 20 different wallets or more that support Rootstock. So it's very difficult to track. But the last one that I use that it's very easy to use and it's multi-chain, where I mean this is if you have other chains tokens, then it's also usually encrypt, which is a browser plugin, and it connects. The good thing is that it connects to your hardware wallet, either Ledger or Trezor. So basically, in just one solution, you have access to your bitcoins or RBTC, which are the bitcoins that live in Rootstock, in your hardware wallet, and you can access through encrypt to any DeFi application that has created for Rootstock.
You did mention that you wrote the first BIP for Drivechains. And
Oh yeah.
honestly, for this show, I was able to get all the sponsors that I like. I reached out to the companies that I support, and I reached out to Paul Stortz and I said, hey, can you sponsor me with Layer 2 Labs in some way? And he found a way to do it. And I'm also a fan of the idea of sidechains that pay fees to the miners. I think
Mm-hmm.
Lightning is great, but the fact that you open a channel and you can keep that open for years and make transactions with that one without paying anything to the miners can become a threat to the security of Bitcoin. The fact that you can have these pegged sidechains where you pay fees to the miners is actually a net benefit, and it can actually help this entire ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
of Bitcoin mining
Yeah.
grow, as we have this reward halving happening every 4 years, and you don't know who's going to drop out because it's no longer profitable. So far, the miners have been pretty good at estimating their profits and figuring out a way to stay active, but we should not gamble on this because
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
the extreme in terms of proposals to counter this, what is generally referred to as the security budget problem. This extreme is
Mm-hmm.
presented by Peter Todd, who said, it's not such a bad idea to have tail emission, which means you're gonna have like 0.1% inflation every year or whatever, just to pay the miners. And if you want to maintain the 21 million, the best way to do it is to have these pegged sidechains that are gonna pay fees to the miners. And much more than
Mm-hmm.
this, they offer stuff that maybe will never get added into Bitcoin Core. For example, you're gonna have a Zcash sidechain or an Ethereum
Mm-hmm.
sidechain or Namecoin or whatever. And I
So
was
so
wondering what you think about the current
yeah.
implementation of
So
drive chains.
So yeah, first about before going into Drivechains, just some words about bit, fees paid to Bitcoin miners. So currently, the amount of fees that Rootstock pay to Bitcoin miners is moderate. It doesn't change the main incentives of Bitcoin miners. It just make them like if they merge mine Rootstock, they get an additional income. Of course, that's beneficial, but it doesn't change the game of Bitcoin fees, right? And but in the long term, if there's many participants paying fees to Bitcoin miners, some Bitcoiners are worried that this may, affect somehow if a certain miner can mine certain chain but not another, then this can bring some problem. And I think that the blind merge mining proposal from Postdoc is the solution. It's a great solution to that problem. People always confuse or put together drive chains with blind merge mining, and basically these are completely different solutions. Like, so you could have blind merge mining for Rootstock now and doesn't care about what the drive chain model is, and by doing so, you basically protect the Bitcoin miners from what is called the bad MEV, right? Bad MEV, right? So essentially, it could be a solved problem, like the problem of MEV for Bitcoin miners. So I just want to point out one of the proposals I did to Bitcoin, and not formally, but in an email, is the idea of having a specific sidechain only to serve as a fast blind merge mining mechanism. Like postal proposal for blind merge mining only works for sidechains that have a 10-minute block interval, like as Bitcoin. They just don't work for fast blockchain as Rootstock. And so one of my ideas is that let's just create a sidechain that is fast enough to support any merge mine, blind merge mine for any other chains. Like make it that the center, the hub of all the side chains, all the fast side chains that do merge mining, and use it only for blind merge mining, which means that we don't need to. We just need to store low amounts of funds and for us for a short period of time. Like we can just drop the old UTXO. We don't care about old stuff. It's not for storage of long-term storage. It's just for doing the auctions for blind merge mining. So we can have a very super lightweight sidechain that has no past, like it has a moving proof of work, and only works for having this. So so I think that it's a very interesting to have this in the future if there are more side chains that do merge mining. And regarding the drive chain model, I'm pro drive chain. I think it's a very interesting model to try. Of course, it must be tried in practice. It's not enough to just have this idea that miners want to attack it. Just it need to be tried first. But I think that for long withdrawal times it works. But of course, long withdrawal times are not very user friendly. So one of the things you can do is actually with BitVMX, you can implement a drive chain. Like it's kind of limited in the sense like you still have a committee that produces the transactions that support the dispute mechanism. But once you do that, and what you have this committee, then basically what you are left is a drive chain. One of the security assumptions of any of these BitVM, BitVMX, or all the families of this protocol is censorship resistant from the miners. So you could say that any of these solutions is in fact kind of a drive chain hidden there.
I actually got a message from Paul Stortz, and it's funny because I like to brag that the smartest people are listening to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. It seems like they are. So Paul says Layer 2 Labs has a working ETH sidechain, but it has 10-minute blocks for now. To fix that, I think we will just stake there on that layer. And we have a EVM layer above that, which can be 12 seconds. What do you think, Sergio? Also, too bad for you, it's winter down there in Argentina. It's summer here in the US.
Yeah, so he proposes having a 10-minute blockchain, which is a drive chain, which has a 12 seconds block and an EVM running. And I suppose that 12 seconds block are meant to produce fast block, but these are not for, I mean, I don't see how you can use that for having a very fast auction mechanism for drive chain. So for having a for blind merge mining, for having a very fast auction mechanism for blind merge mining, you have to actually create very fast proof of work blocks or shares for mining pools. So it's a different problem. Maybe he has a solution for that on top of the 12 seconds EVM stack. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess you should message him and tell him what you think about this proposal of his to have
Yeah,
12
I should
second
read it
blocks.
first. Yeah.
But I do like when
One.
people come up with ideas and solutions as opposed to saying, let's just have banks.
Yeah. One of the layer two labs has made a very different approach compared to what Rootstock community has done. They are kind of waiting for Drivechain to be soft fork into Bitcoin, and they might have excellent technology, but that technology cannot be put on under stress, under the test, until they have this drive chain added to Bitcoin, which is kind of, I don't know, sad, I would say. Our approach is more like let's build it, and then we will try to improve it, and we will show the world that there is use cases for financial inclusion, and this is not just a mind game.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's funny because the sponsors that I have are so aligned with what you're doing. It's a very nice coincidence. I also wanted
Great.
to ask you to go back to BitVMX.
Yeah.
how do you encourage people to start building with it? Because I think that's the most important part when community picks up a project and finds cool ways to use it.
Yeah, so we have many external people from the core team telling us, "Hey, we want to contribute," and we say, "Just wait us for a couple of weeks more, because we want to set up the kind of the core mechanism that we are finalizing the CPU, and then we will open, like, the code is open source, but we are just at this point not accepting direct code contribution because it takes a lot of time to obviously review them and make sure they fit into the overall design. But yeah, I hope that we have a proof of concept thing in a months or a couple of months, so that we can start accepting external contribution where the main architectural design is ready, and send, so we can actually have a little more of free time to merge external contributions. So we will see this working, like, as a proof of concept in a couple of months, surely. Like, 100% of the CPU instructions have already been coded into the local client, the one that emulates a RISC-V processor, and like 50% have been implemented in Bitcoin script. And so maybe in a week or so, we have 100% of the RISC-V opcodes actually implemented in Bitcoin script, and then it's time for open it.
Yes, and I also have to mention hodling.ch, which is not the last, but the last sponsor that I will be mentioning in this episode. They're a business that's based in Switzerland and they help you with your setup. If you're a company that holds a lot of Bitcoin and wants to buy more, or you're just a whale who owns a lot of Bitcoin but has no idea how to manage it, you can give these guys a call. It's hodling.ch. They're based in Switzerland, which means you get better confidentiality in regards to their consultancy service. And they're also experts in hardware wallets. So they're going to help you build multi-sigs or Shamir backups or whatever is necessary for your individual use case. You just explain to them what you need and they're going to present you the best solution. So check out hodling.ch. And thanks everyone from Sideshift.ai, Starkware, Layer 2 Labs, and Hodling for sponsoring the show. And also, goodbye Wasabi Wallet. It was nice having you as a sponsor. It was a very cool company. Now they decentralized their CoinJoin mechanism, but I think they still have the best technology for offering Bitcoin privacy. You can still download the wallet and use it, but you're gonna have to find a third-party coordinator for your CoinJoins. And Sergio, I was thinking right now that maybe we should do another interview when you have a ready implementation for a demo for BitVMX and explain to
Sure.
people how it works in a live setting and also how they can build on it. Because I think there are some builders watching this show and maybe that they're going to get inspired to contribute to this.
Yeah, sure. So there are 3 or 4 developers now that are fully working on making this happen. I think I can bring one of them who know much more about the code as compared to me, and so we can do a live demo and show how to interface with it. The basic idea we have is that we will be improving the prover and the mechanism all the time, and with different versions. But if we keep the interface, then you will just have a better and a cheaper smart contracts, and you will keep your application like without changes, right? So we could put in our platform BitVMX backend and a BitVMX2 backend, which is basically faster or have lower number of rounds or whatever, and you will be able to pick your security backend and without changing your application. That's the final goal, to integrate all different smart contract solutions on Bitcoin, based obviously on the BitVM paradigm, in a single project, because the fragmentation is going to be a blocker for new developers. We want like working smart contracts on Bitcoin be very easy for any developer. We need to bring that to give that back to Bitcoin developers. So we want to make this really easy to work with.
I think that's essential because there are lots of good ideas and there's a lot of stuff that you can build with this, but you need the proper toolkit and the right incentive for people to start building this. And I also want to address something that's going to be controversial and funny, maybe for you.
Mhm.
But there was this interview on another podcast that I'm not going to mention. It's like the McDonald's of podcasts, and it's also hosted by someone who has Mac in his name. But basically, there was this accusation by a conspiracy theorist journalist who was on his show and had like a million downloads or something. And she multiple times said that Rootstock is working with some free letter agencies to tokenize carbon credits and enslave humanity on their blockchain. You're the architect of this project, so do you know anything about this?
No, I have no idea. I read an article on Bitcoin Magazine about like a 40 pages article, probably written by ChatGPT. I don't know. It's very funny that mentions a lot of Argentinian people. Some of them are, friends from college. Some of them I knew in meetups. So it's a really very funny story. And the first thing is that Rootstock it's a decentralized sidechain, which means that anyone can build anything. I don't know if there is anyone there building a carbon credit tokens, which I really don't know. But if there's anyone doing it, we can prevent that. Like it's there, right? It's like any other blockchain. So I don't know who's trying to build that. And then there is the Rootstock Lab, which is a company which is super transparent. Like anyone in the company knows what the company is doing. I don't know how there could be a secret plan for building something. I'm just an employee, but I get everything, everything related to the news. So I really think this is very funny. What I found is that the only connection between all these people that is mentioned in this Bitcoin Magazine article is that they are all from Argentina. So somehow they thought that, oh, if these people are from Argentina, maybe there's a I don't know, something in Argentina happening to try to dominate the world. And it's just the thing is that we know each other because we've been together in many crypto meetups, and that's all.
Oh no, no, hear me up. It's actually the Nazis, right? And they're the ones that went to Argentina, and now they're
Oh,
coming back by tokenizing carbon credits
oh,
on the Rootstock sidechain.
okay, okay.
That's
So it's the Nazis. Okay, okay.
of course.
No, okay. Now, really, really, it's well, people invent all kinds of stories. I have nothing against or for tokenizing karma. I don't know anything about that. So just I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that.
I don't know. I think this industry has a lot of cases where there are shady deals. For example, there was Charles Hoskinson, the creator of Cardano, who was trying to tokenize the the school records of children from Kenya or something. And I
Uh-huh.
think that's a lot worse because you're going to have your grades written on a ledger that's supposedly permanent, and that ledger is going to follow you for the rest of your life. So if you get a bad grade, everyone's going to know about it for the rest of your life, maybe. I think that's even more horrible than tokenizing carbon credits. But for some reason, that one gets a free pass. They're like, it's fine. But whenever it's
Yep,
something
yep.
that's building and improving Bitcoin, they say, oh, there's something evil about this and you need to know about it and you should never use that layer. I don't know. It's.
The thing about sovereign identity, there are many projects that want to do something about, have some sort of privacy protected identity on the blockchains, and then you use that as a collateral for I don't know, as a reputation for doing something else. The ideas are interesting, but the devil is on the details, like what cryptographic schemes are using. What if they are broken in the future? So what about the people's data that it's suddenly a variable on the blockchain? I don't know. There's many questions regarding putting personal information, even if it's encrypted on the blockchain. I don't feel comfortable with that, at least for a lot more years, right? Uh, but yeah, people are doing very interesting things regarding proving, for instance, you want to open a bank account, you want to prove you have a certain amount of income, but you don't want to reveal where that income is coming from. So maybe there is a way that you can create a certificate that hides everything except the fact that you have certain level of income, for instance. and that allows you to have a decentralized identity that you can use to actually deal with different security domains. So there's a lot of interesting ideas, but I don't know. I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I was thinking it could be also fun if we do a live demo of BitVM X. We could also do a live demo of Rootstock, and I'm gonna try to create some sort of Bitcoin takeover token or whatever and airdrop it on the listeners who are live on the show. It will be
Okay.
worthless, but if you're gonna sell that for $1 or something, I'll probably dump on you. So be careful what you wish for.
Okay. Yeah, we can do it. I can bring I don't know, any user of Rootstock that a developer of any solution of the Rootstock ecosystem to do it, because I just mostly use Rootstock for my things in the daily basis, more than programming Rootstock at this point.
Yeah. And I think more people should be trying it and using it because it has more advanced capability than runes or ordinals. And it's also cheaper to use. So you should
Yeah.
give it a try, It's a Bitcoin layer. It pays fees to the Bitcoin miners. I don't know why people
Well,
don't talk about this.
my opinions about NFTs in general is like, if you want to do that, do it on Rootstock. Do not spam the Bitcoin network with that. Like, you have the opportunity to have proof of work secured NFTs forever on a sidechain, then do it on Rootstock. And I mean, if you want to do it on Bitcoin, okay, it's fine. But you have this opportunity now to do it on Rootstock. And I'm not particularly interested in NFTs, not at all. But they are cheaper. Much more easy to trade. You can create interesting. You can put them as collateral for some other DeFi solutions. There's a lot more that you can do with them than just create some inscription in Bitcoin and leave it like that.
Yeah. For the record, I did create an inscription live on this show when I interviewed David Bailey, and I told everyone that they can only buy that for 3.125 BTC. And yeah, it's still out there. It's on your node. If you're trying to filter that, you will probably fail. But we did that just because we can, and just to remind people that Bitcoin is permissionless and you can use it for whatever you want as long as you can pay the fee. Unfortunately, there used to be this meme that Bitcoin is for everyone, and there is an asterisk there. It's for everyone who can afford to pay the transaction fee, for better and for worse.
One of the things that we did on Rootstock is we have a parallel transaction processing engine, which is, I think there's no other AVM which has worked so hard on that. So maybe it's already running in testnet, but in the future, in the next mainnet, it gets merged into the mainnet. So that allows you to have several threads processing EVM transactions in parallel, which basically allows you to have more transactions and have lower transaction fees. So that's another reason why transactions on Rootstock are going to be cheaper.
Sergio, let's end this episode with a prediction before we do the demo and everything else. What do you think is the next soft fork that's going to get activated on Bitcoin? And when?
It's interesting. Yeah, so I think it will be Opcat because it's a lot less controversial and has lot less variants than any other thing that has been ever proposed for Bitcoin. Like, there is no way of improving or changing Opcat in any way that make it better. Like, you can decide, okay, the maximum amount of bytes you can concatenate is 200 or is 500, whatever. But it's essentially, there is no. It's like a fixed point in a space, right? Where you cannot improve it. So from that perspective, I think it's going to be Opcat, and the time, it could be between 1 and 3 years. That's that would be a prediction, like 2 years, if ever happen.
You're pessimistic. I think it's gonna happen.
No, that's super optimistic. For me, it's super optimistic. 2 years for a change to Bitcoin. Wow, that would be great. you have to understand how Bitcoin works. Like consensus, it's very messy and takes a lot of time, and it needs a lot of time. And I hope, I mean, I wish it could be faster, but I think that's the way it's going to work.
For better and for worse, I guess. But at the same time, you know, Upcat has been on Liquid of all chains for years and also on Bitcoin Cash. If you want to break it, you can actually destroy Bcash if you think there's something destructive. You can do with Upcat. And it's only like 12 lines of code. It's not such a big change. You can.
Yeah, but the politics behind it and the fact that it enables covenants is the thing that is going to be discussed over and over and over for 2 years. It's
Segwit
not
was
about the
bigger,
technical
Taproot was
change.
bigger. This is just 12 lines of
It's
code.
not. It's not about being bigger or smaller. It's about the conceptual change that now Bitcoin would be able to restrict future transactions and create kind of non-fungible bitcoins if obviously if this is a recursive constraint, right? And that is a political debate which is going to happen in the following years. That's why I'm saying 2 years. If it was just a bug fix, obviously it would take a lot less than that. So one of the things that BitVM can be a catalyzing factor is like if we already have a way to, kind of close to decentralization, like very trust minimized way of doing smart contracts in Bitcoin, then I think that people will be more prone to accept Opcat because they can see the benefits and the new use cases that can be brought into Bitcoin. So I think that it can be a catalyzing factor to reduce the time for merging Opcat.
I'll write down 2 years. I hope this happens much sooner. But honestly, now that you described the trade offs and the debates that I guess we haven't had on a serious scale, it's just people expressing their concerns on Twitter. And it's also the fact that there are many more covenant proposals out there. And some say, oh no, this is bigger. This one has more potential. I guess you're right. It's gonna take 2 years. And it's unfortunate, but
you have to think in this in game theoretic terms, like how it's going to be how it's going to be disrupted by any other proposal, how it's going to stay in the minds of the people during these 2 years. It's much it's the technical part. It's I would say it's the less the part will be less discussed. It's all about politics here and the future of Bitcoin, right?
yeah, for better and for worse, now it's not
Yeah.
about technicals, it's about politics and making everyone happy. And one person, one developer who's not happy with an implementation can stall projects for years, as is the case of Drivechains.
Yeah, and I don't have a solution for that. Like it's there is no process to improve Bitcoin, and probably there's never going to be a established process, because as soon as you establish a process, you can try to hijack the process. So yeah, we are stuck with this, and I only hope my only hope is that discussions are a lot less aggressive and more civilized, even if it takes 2 years. I just want to be able to discuss this in a very civilized way. That's the only thing I want for this time.
Okay, Sergio. Thank you very much for taking your time to explain BitVMX and everything else that you're working on. And I very much look forward to doing another episode where you do a live demo of everything that you described in words.
Thanks, Vlad, for the invitation, and I take that new invitation, and I will prepare for next time with a full blown system that we can show.
And after
Thanks very
this one,
much.
make sure you check out season 15, episode 7, which is an interview about Sergio's previous work, how he got into Bitcoin, and all of that story. I think it's very nice. It's recorded in La Cripta in Buenos Aires. And I also must thank Agustin, who is the owner of this beautiful house in Buenos Aires, and he let me use it. And check that one out. It's important for your knowledge and understanding of people who are doing a lot for Bitcoin but are not very well known and publicized.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll see you in the next one.